Welcome to Conversations with Alya Lei. Tune in for inspiration, information, and upliftment as creatives and entrepreneurs share their journeys, challenges, and successes.
Today we have amazing Christopher D. Silveri, who takes great pride in his career in the entertainment industry that has spanned the last 2 decades since his graduation from New York University Tisch School of the Arts. Christopher is the partner and vice president of UIA Talent, a talent agency with headquarters in New York City. After a brief stint in acting, Christopher began his entertainment career casting commercials with Liz Lewis Casting Partners, moved on to representation to head up the legit department theater, TV, and film at Gilla Roos Limited, and began his management career as the vice president of talent management at Prestige Management Group. Christopher started his own talent management company in 2017, serving clients on both coasts and in all mediums of the entertainment business. Christopher's clients can be seen on every single television network, including Amazon, Netflix, HBO, Showtime, Hulu, Apple TV Plus, TBS, Stars, etc., and also on many major feature films, The Wolf of Wall Street, etc. Many of Christopher's clients also have national ad campaigns and or major print advertisements running. Christopher also does many seminars for those just starting out in the entertainment industry, teaching and participating in workshops in New York, such as New York University, Pace University, Brooklyn College, and Washington, D.C. Christopher, thank you
All
so much.
correct. It's been a long journey.
This is so awesome. All right, Christopher, I'm gonna just kind of start to ask you. You started as an actor first, right?
I sure did. If I went into my real backstory before I was
Yes.
of college age, I
Yes.
started out actually as a dancer. Um,
Oh,
uh, well, let's just say when I was growing up on Long Island, I used to play baseball for my father's sake. And over time, I started to just find a fascination with all of the various different things that I was seeing. Um, and I decided that I wanted to dance because I thought it was such a beautiful medium. So when I was 13, I decided to tell my father I didn't want to play baseball anymore. He loved that. And I actually became a dancer.
yeah.
I was late to the game, clearly, because most people start much earlier, but I then went into a very like fast program and I was part of a Glefsky Ballet Company on Long Island.
Wow.
It sounds awesome
Yes.
until, a couple of years into it, one of my teachers, poked me while I was at the bar and was like, "This is soft. It shouldn't be." So, as with dancing, it was not exactly the right venue for me. Only because I like French fries too much, let's be honest. Um, Anyways, so from there, then I actually said, what can I do to, still move but tell stories through body and all that stuff? And so I started to
Yeah.
do regional theater on Long Island
Okay.
with Jamie Lynn Sigler from The Sopranos, Natalie Portman at Cultural Arts Playhouse on Long Island. And
Wow.
that's how I kind of got into really the acting portion. Then I realized, oh, wow, I actually like to sing and do all these things. And so I specialized in that in high school and started to do a lot. My high school was actually a very close relationship with MTI or Music Theater International.
Mm.
And we were the first high school to ever do Les Miserables, junior. So actually,
Wow.
Cameron McIntosh came to our high school.
Wow.
Yes. Of course, many of my schoolmates also then went on to many big things, including Jenna Ushkowitz, who was on Glee. She was in Les Mis with me. Alexa
Wow.
Yeah, Alexa Green was in
Yes.
my school as well, who was Glinda on the tour of Wicked, Linda. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a huge coup, and I did an early admission to NYU, hoping to get
Yes.
into Cap 21,
Uh-huh.
which doesn't exist anymore now. It's the new school. I did not. I got into Atlantic Theater Company.
Okay.
So I guess that's a good thing and a bad thing. They were basically like, sure, you can sing. Let's get you into an acting program. Um, so yeah, I was actually at Atlantic Theater Company at NYU, which is where my acting career started. And then from there, you know, the rest is history.
so you went to NYU, got into the
Mhm.
Atlantic Theater Company. So you were what, around 18, 19, 20 around that time?
17, and then
17.
yes, I
Oh.
actually graduated early. I graduated in 3 years because I had a lot of AP credits and things like that. So,
So you're saying
um,
you're a genius. Okay, whatever. No, I'm just kidding.
no, no, I only had those credits because I copied all of my brother's answers for my AP courses. Um, no. I mean, I graduated early. So I
Wow.
was actually out of college by 20. And in my third year, because NYU had a rule that for the first 2 years, you cannot leave your studio. So I was in Atlantic for the first 2 years. And then generally in the third year, people switched to a different studio. Most
Oh,
people went to Stone Street for film and television.
oh.
I actually did not. I was told that Jack from Will and Grace was already cast and I should find a new career. I know, I know.
Why?
It's
Yeah.
it's well, different time, different time. I'm not that young, darling. Different era. And
Mhm.
so
That
from
must have
there,
hurt like so bad. I mean, it's like well, first the poke in ballet when you're a kid, which
hmm
was, I know ballet back then. I hear they're really working on making ballet more
more
positive
open,
now.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that hurts. And then the Jack thing. Ow.
I mean, first of all, it's a compliment. I wish I was as
Yes.
good as Sean Hayes, but no, I mean, honestly, it was painful,
Yeah.
especially at that age, and I spoke to many a bottle of scotch about it. But that i- in retrospect,
Yeah.
it was actually very helpful. And the
Mm.
reason being in obviously in retrospect, I looked at it as this was a passion and this was an amazing way to do something for
Mhm.
myself, but I never looked at it as a business. And
Mm.
that for some reason was just not computing in my brain when I was that young. And so now looking back at it, I'm like, in actuality, if I didn't take so much offense to it, I would have seen that ultimately they were trying to say it's a business. What is your brand? You know,
Mm.
but who would take it from that kind of comment, at that age? So I,
Right.
I
Right.
am bittersweet about that,
Yeah.
but at the same point, it did help me come to terms with the fact that it is show business, not show fun.
Mm.
So from there, instead of doing a third year of studio in my final year, I
Yeah.
actually just started interning, and that counted as my studio credit. So I
Really?
actually worked at Liz Lewis Casting Partners while still in college, and she actually
Yes.
hired me before I graduated. So I actually had a job in the real world before I graduated college. So I
Yeah.
had an early start. I mean,
Nice.
I don't know if that's good, but so
So
be it.
so when you were so you did pivot when you heard
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Um, everyone has their paths, and obviously yours is very successful. Um, just interesting. When did you realize the show business part together versus show fun, right? Like, because it is
Hmm.
a business, and maybe that's what a lot of actors don't realize that are in it for the passion, is that it is a business. When did you put the two and two together? And what would you recommend to help actors understand what that means as a business?
It's hard. The first part I can answer. The second
Yes.
part is a harder one because I think everyone needs to come to terms with it in their own way
Yeah.
because it can be a very difficult pill to swallow.
Mm.
For me, the same person who told me that Jack was already cast, actually did a business of acting class
Oh.
when I was young.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think it was exactly 100% a business of acting class, but we had a wonderful activity.
Mm,
And they came into the classroom, had a stack of headshots,
mm-hmm,
threw them all on the floor, and then
mm-hmm.
put us all into groups and said, create a sitcom from these headshots.
Hmm.
We don't know who these people are. We had no idea. All we could do was look at these pictures, look at their resumes, and
Yeah.
try to put together something that we felt would work. And
Right.
that was a very big wake up call for me to say, doesn't matter whether they can act, does it? Do they look like they can be a family? Do they look like they can fit in this idea of this false, fake pilot that we were doing? And I
Uh-huh.
thought, wow, I mean, so does your acting really play a part in it? Not always. And that's where my eyes kind of were opened
Yeah.
to the idea that there is a business and there will always be several people behind that desk, behind that table that have their own opinions that may not be the same as yours. So that was a very good way for me to have learned that it is a business. That look, I could look at someone's picture and be like, ugh, they look like an ex, pass. Did that have
Yeah.
anything to do with your acting? No. But you don't
No.
know, is that the person who has the most clout in that room? People are going to listen to them. And that's what really kind of like opened myself to the idea that the business aspect is a very large portion. It does
Wow.
not mean that I don't value the art. It's
Yeah.
just it's a slippery slope and a very thin line between those two. And so consistently being on both ends of that, of saying,
Yes.
yes, this is what you can do to be creative and do your art, and this is what you can do to understand where you're going into. Because no matter where you are in your career,
Yeah.
you will always have people that like you or
Yes.
don't.
Yes. Right. Right. Wow. That's huge. Whoa. So that's why I'm thinking sometimes you hear or I hear actors complaining, right?
Hmm.
Because they're like, I can act better than that person. But it's not about just the talent. Thank
Sadly,
God.
no.
Thank God for
Right?
me.
Oh, no, that's not true. But it is, I mean, that's the sad reality. I mean, especially since the panda and since the strike, I will say what a lot of people have not taken into account is
Mm,
the entertainment industry is it's part of commerce. Um, the
mm,
people who make these shows, the network shows, those are IPOs that are publicly traded, which means that we are in and of itself a part of the financial world. So, what do you think happened when you guys shut down the entire industry for a year? Well, those people who are shareholders in those companies were like, no, we need money
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And what was happening prior to the strike is very important too, is that everyone was fighting to be as successful as the streamers. And so what they would do is they would, throw money, a couple $1 million at many, many projects.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're taking their limited amount for new content and saying, put it only towards two things that we know will work. And what do they
Mm.
know will work? How do you know that someone will watch their show? Find a celebrity that everyone loves.
Wow. But that's not even a guarantee at all, though.
It's not. And
Yeah.
I kind of feel very happy when one of those shows fail, just because I'm like, see, maybe you guys should learn, but I don't work at a network. So it's not my
Yeah.
job. But I will say, I mean, sometimes it works for their benefit, sometimes it doesn't, but it is a more risk adverse
Mm.
MO for these
Yeah.
studios and networks to
Yeah.
kind of basically say, well, if we get someone who already has a fan base, that's going to be a smarter choice than taking up someone who has no credits but can act better.
Oh, wow. This is great. I mean, it's not great to hear, but it's
No,
great
yeah.
information. It's great knowledge that I think most actors don't hear in
Hmm.
general. That's fantastic. All right, so let's go back. Let's go
Yeah.
back. So you started right in your senior last year in at
NYU.
Tisch at
Hmm.
NYU. You've been hired. You're now working in casting.
Hmm.
Okay. How is that? And and I just want to acknowledge you for staying in the company and not while you got that news that could have been said in a different way so you could just rebranded yourself into somebody different than Sean Hayes because
Hmm.
there's space, right? But anyways, so you're
Hmm.
doing casting. How was that? And then like where did
Yeah.
that go?
I loved casting.
Yes.
I still do. And in fact, I would say that 99% of my friends are casting directors. Um,
Yeah.
because I respect what they do so much. It's such an underappreciated talent. Um,
Mm,
People think that they are just like these people with all the power, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I don't think you know anything about casting. You think that they're
mm-hmm.
these rich people who are holding the key to the world. Well, that's they're still working themselves, and especially while there was a strike, those people were making no money. So it's I
Right.
like it's a very underutilized or underappreciated talent. Um, but suffice it to say, I loved casting because you get to create these worlds. You get to help have a say in them,
Yeah.
but you don't get the final say. Let's just be clear on that. But you do get to be a part of bringing those things to life. And I think that that is the beautiful thing about casting that I absolutely loved. Um, Unfortunately for me, having done casting for 4.5 years,
Uh-huh.
it was a little difficult for me when I started to work on commercials, and casting commercials.
Mm.
Um, One, voiceover artists were generally 3 times my age and did not appreciate getting notes from someone in their early 20s. So
Oh.
that was a very interesting um, moment.
Oh.
Um, yeah, it's fine. So many years ago. But also there were a lot of different commercial casting, commercial directors.
Yeah.
Um, and commercials are a different beast because you're talking about ad agencies who literally don't care anything about the entertainment industry. And
Yeah.
they would literally come to me and be like, call this person in. And I'd be like, I don't even like that person. But sure, because it
Uh-huh.
was my job to do what they asked. And
Right.
I kind of saw that for me, I lost a little bit of like the magic of being
Mm.
able to work with the people that I wanted to work with because as a former actor, I liked actors. I wanted
Yeah.
to see them succeed.
Yeah.
And instead, I was being told who to bring in. And I was like,
Yeah.
I feel like there was a cap for
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
to have my own creativity.
Yeah.
So um, that's when I was like, how do I get a chance to work with the actors I want to work with? And
Mm-hmm.
from there, what is the answer? Oh, that's right. Representation. I can represent the actors I want to work with. So it
Yeah.
was a very smart, next step for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you realized you weren't working with the people you wanted to. And you're like,
Exactly.
what can I do? What can I do? And then it came to you, representation.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was pivoting before the panda.
How did you become an agent? Like, how did you even know where to start?
So that's actually a very interesting question. So Gilla Roos was primarily a commercial and print agency.
Uh-huh.
And they had a completely separate division that was run by a gentleman named Marv Josephson, who was in the industry since, oh goodness, the early 40s, I believe, 50s. Like he was around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And at that time, he was basically on his way out. to actually retire, but it's very hard to get someone to retire at that age.
Okay.
Because if they're still working, he didn't want to stop working. So
Yeah.
I got the opportunity to take all of my knowledge and experience in casting
Yes.
and kind of come in there, but I didn't want to work in commercial representation. I wanted to start to expand into the film, television, and theater world.
Right.
This was when we were still sending packages out of headshots for breakdowns. Yeah. Uh, and I got a wonderful opportunity to work with him for a couple of months before I became the official head of that
Wow.
department.
Yeah.
And I ended up like being gifted some amazing people who had huge careers, including Samuel Lee Wright, who was, you know,
Uh,
the original Sebastian, and it was the original Scar in Lion King on Broadway. So like there
wow.
were some amazing things that I got a chance to really experience. And I learned very quickly because I already had been dealing with a lot of people in the representation angle. And so I knew what was working for me as a casting director, and it was a very quick transition. And then when he officially retired, it was officially all of mine. So it was a pretty good transition.
Yeah. Wow. And
Mm.
did you have any doubts, like when you transitioned from casting to being a talent agent? Did you have any doubts at all in terms of what to do, or because you had some mentorship for that couple of months that really helped transition you into a new parallel, but within the same industry,
It's a
but
great
different
question.
career?
It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I did, but I was also in my early 20s, and I think that I was just
Mm.
so hungry,
Yeah.
and I thought I could take on anything and then never
Yes.
experience the negative. And if I
Yes.
did, then I'd turn it around and work to
Yes.
the positive.
Yes.
So was I nervous? The only thing that made me nervous was when I became an agent, at the time, SAG and AFTRA, not SAG-AFTRA, they both basically made me sign away my rights to ever become a casting director again.
What?
They said as long as you are no longer interested in being a casting director, because that is a conflict of interest, because I would not be able to represent people as well as cast them, which was kind of like that was around the time when they were trying to get managers in the SAG-AFTRA situation. Like, there's a lot of different situations there. But suffice it to say, I
Oh.
did have to say I am not casting. I have no interest in coming into representation with the opportunity to double dip and cast my people, which would then,
Oh.
yeah, it was very, it was appropriate for the unions, but it was just not something that really I knew how to do. So that was an
Yeah.
interesting moment, but it was nothing bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So you like so now does that still apply today? Like you literally cannot do any casting still?
Well, if you're a rep,
Yes.
yeah, that
You
is
can't.
correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. Because
There
it's
are
I
some
get
casting
it.
directors that act,
Yeah.
but that is not something that has ever been, in
Yeah.
question. Like people can do that. But as far as representation and casting, no.
Yeah.
And also, those unions will also say you can't be a producer. That happened back in the early aughts with CAA and WME, basically with what they
Uh-huh.
call packaging. That was a
Yeah.
huge thing. So because CAA, WME, UTA, ICM, which some of them, you know, uh, they would basically represent all people for a production, which means that they
Mm-hmm.
represented the writer, director, and star. And
Yeah.
so they would then sell those people and that product
Yeah.
to a studio. And
Yeah.
so basically that means that they were double dipping because they were not only getting a percentage of commission from the that person that they represented, but
Yeah.
also a percentage of the commission from it as a whole, as a sale to said studio or network. And so
Ah.
the state actually
Yeah.
and the unions both cracked down on that and said you cannot do that as an agent. So that's where that kind of situation became a thing of they're
Yes.
trying to say you can't produce and be an agent, which is why a lot of people became managers around that time. A lot of people said, well, I want to continue to do that. And
Yeah.
so they just removed themselves from the unions. Um, and it's also why the managers never would agree to becoming part of the
The union.
unions because they were like, no,
Ah,
that's how we make most of our money, in that we are working with people who are multi-hyphenates and we
right.
need to commission whatever we work on.
Right.
So there's a lot of gray area there, but suffice it to say now with franchise agents, part of the unions, they
Yes.
that still exists. You cannot produce, you cannot be a casting director because that would be
Uh-huh.
a way of you getting around their rules of saying you must employ the actor.
Okay. Okay. Because it seems like they're still doing packaging though, right? Like, no, yes. I don't know.
Everyone who wants to do something will find ways to do it.
Uh-huh.
Whether or not it's illegal is another story, is basically the only way I can really reply to that. I won't say that it doesn't
Yeah.
happen, and I won't say
Yeah.
that it does happen, but
Yeah.
in so many words,
Uh,
there are ways around things, but
yeah.
I don't do that. I mean that's why, you know, my wonderful father would always say, "Why don't you just go and work at the CIA mailroom and then work your way up?" And I was like, just that business ethic never worked for me personally.
Mm,
Um, yeah.
yeah. Cool. Okay. Thank you. That was very informative.
Mm, yeah.
So, okay, so now you're an agent.
Mhm.
Not only an agent, president
Mm,
of Gilla Roos.
mhm.
And how long were you there for? And when and why did you transition
About a
again?
year and yeah, I know.
Yeah.
A year and a half.
Yes.
And that was back in 2008, which was the wonderful financial crisis.
Uh-huh.
And I do distinctly recall the owner at the time saying, I can't afford to pay you anymore. And I said, well, I can't afford to work here anymore. So,
Yeah.
which actually wasn't a bad thing per se. It was just the nature of where we were in the industry.
Yeah.
Because again, our industry is very tied to corporate America. As much as we don't like to believe it, it is true. And so from there, I basically had the opportunity to take my entire client list and just
Yes.
go shop it around.
Okay.
Um, Now, unfortunately, other agencies were also closing at that time. So that
Mm.
was not really the best of options. And so I
Right.
got the opportunity to actually work with a management company,
Mm-hmm.
which was even better for me at the time
Mm-hmm.
because it was a way for me to then kind of whittle down my client list to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I could really pay attention to the ones that I cared so much about and I felt that they needed my personalized attention. Um,
Mm.
Now, that's not to say I didn't care about the other ones. It's just to say it kind of made me focus a little bit more on my work for them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and how necessary it is to have that level of communication and work with
Right.
each person as they are trying to break into a business that is oversaturated. So that's how I started in management with Prestige Management Group, and I was there for 9.5 years, and it was
That's
amazing.
a good amount of time.
Yeah, I know I'm old.
No, no, I don't think that. Well, you don't look it, right? We've talked
Mm,
about that.
you're kind.
But that's fantastic that you were there for 9 years. That I mean, that shows that was a great company and a really great fit, right? Because
It was.
you were there for nine. Um, while you were there,
Mhm.
you know what I'm hearing overall in general so far is like it seems like every time there was what would be considered an obstacle or a challenge or a shift, you just
Mhm.
shifted with it. Like you
Oh
just
yeah.
kept shifting and moving forward. Like You shifted and moved forward. You shifted and moved forward. Like every time you've shifted and moved forward is what I'm hearing. It's very cool. And that you really believed in yourself when you were in your 20s.
Yeah, well,
What?
I don't know where that came from. Probably those bottles of scotch or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, I mean, I do think that this industry in and of itself is a shifting industry. And so for me, each time that those obstacles presented,
Yeah.
my option was to just throw my hands up and say F it,
Yeah.
or shift with it and try to move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And so I
Mm.
knew that each time that these obstacles presented themselves, I had to switch gears in order
Mm.
to continue on. And I could
Yeah.
never give this industry up.
Yeah. You
So
love the industry.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. I was always a huge fan of acting and storytelling and just
Yeah.
art in general.
Yeah.
And that is why I would continue to pivot. And honestly, it's helped me a lot because let's just be honest. I mean, what happened in like 2020? And then what happened in 2023? Like, these are huge obstacles, but I had already had the experience of pivoting to make sure that
Yeah.
there's still possible ways of income and making this my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And you still love it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. All right. So, prestige,
Hmm.
amazing. Huge clients, amazing. Next pivot
Next
was
pivot was actually
the
the
pandy?
easiest. No,
No.
actually.
Okay.
No, I mean, in no uncertain terms, I wanted to have authority. I wanted to have my
Mm.
own
Yes.
roster,
Yeah.
rather than try to ask someone else if they believed in who I thought should be brought on or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And hello, my daddy issues and authority issues is that like I wanted things to be on my terms. And I didn't want to have to split money with other people who were
Mm.
doing these things for me. And so from there, I
Yeah.
thought the easiest way to do that was to have my own company.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that comes with all of the business crap that you got to deal with. So that
Yeah.
was definitely a new thing for me. But at
Yeah.
the same point, if that is all it took for me to have that authority,
Yeah.
it was worth it. And so
Yeah.
that's how I then started my own company, Center Stage Management, and it was brilliant. Of course, probably not of the best of times because that was in 2017. So I only had 3 years before the world went upside down. But
Yeah.
um, suffice it to say, I still managed to hold on to my company for 7.5 years, all on my
Yeah.
own, even with
Yeah.
a panda. So I don't know. It works for me.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. So you had to learn like all this business stuff that you didn't know before once you
Mhm.
became your own entity.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like you knew what you wanted and you went for it, right?
When I
Like it,
make up my mind, I make
yeah,
up my mind. I may
yeah,
not think through the details of it
yeah,
100%, but I'm like, mind made up. We'll
yes,
figure it out.
yeah, yeah. So your mind's made up, you take that action, you're like, and then you just figure it out as you go along.
Yeah. It's
Ah,
called
that's
life.
fantastic.
We'll never know every single thing that could possibly go right or wrong. And
Yeah,
that's why I think that has just always been my MO in life is just like,
yeah,
take the step. What happens in that step forward?
yeah,
We don't know. But if you
yeah,
don't take it, you won't
yeah.
know.
I love that. That's so good. Wow, you are bold. You are a bold, bad ASS. I don't know if I can say that on my.
Why not? Sure.
I don't know. Awesome. Okay, so your own management company, amazing. Survived through the panda. Crazy, because there was nothing
Hmm.
going on then. Or it's just like, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
And finally, now you are at UIA.
UIA. Yes.
Yes.
That actually happened because in 2023, which I like to refer to as dumpster fire, um,
Did you see that
2023,
commercial? The
no,
2020, what was that? There was that commercial with the devil, and he like finally met his love of his life, which was like, what was it?
I,
2020, twenty
I
twenty
think
three. I don't remember. Yeah.
I have seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, look, 2023 was a hard year for everyone. Not just the on camera world. And yeah, it just changed perspectives because I'm not a 20 something anymore. And the 7.5 years that I was running my own company, I specialized in film and television. I mean, I did have theater people as well, don't get me wrong, because,
Yeah.
coming from my background, of course, I will never turn down a good theater.
Yes.
Um, but people I noticed were always coming to me for film and television. Like they had already gotten their Broadway credit and then they got bored
Mm.
with it. And so they were
Yeah.
like, I want to do film and television. There's so much to do in New York.
Yeah.
So I ended up being very specialized in film and television as a manager. And that made 2023 really hard. So there I
Mm.
was in the middle of a dual strike, which has not happened since I've been alive, actually. Um,
And they were
and
long,
and they were
long,
long.
long strikes.
Yeah, I can't, I'm not going to make comment on, you know, the good or the bad of those strikes because everyone has their own thoughts. It's just regardless of the good or the negative that came out, I think people forget it still happened for 9 months.
Yeah. No one
So
was making any money
any money.
at
And
during those
especially when
nine
you're a
months.
business owner,
Yeah.
where's any money coming from? And my life is my business. So it
Yeah.
was definitely a moment of realization of saying, I need to expand.
Oh.
I need to not just specialize in film and television. I need to have other sources of income for my actors.
There you are
Um,
pivoting again. Yeah.
and there I am pivoting again. And, some people were more than happy to take on any theater project that came on their way. Other people
Hmm.
were like, I'm going to ride it out with
Hmm.
SAG-AFTRA. And,
Yeah.
that's great for them. I mean, stand your ground. However, for me, that that's not fiscally savvy. Let's just say
Yeah.
that. So, anyways, over the past couple of years, though, I had shared clients as a manager, and then they were the agents with Aaron and Nicole and Heather at UIA.
Yes.
And they actually basically approached me in early 2024 and said, would you ever consider becoming a partner here? We love film and television. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily our strength, but it's definitely something that we have here and we do. And we would
Hmm.
love, if that would be something that you're interested in, because we understand that we're trying to expand to multiple different streams of income. And I was like, that's a great idea. Oh my God, I wish I thought of that as a manager. I'm like, so it was really, I mean, it was a long process because that was back in what, February? And it wasn't
Uh-huh.
until August that I started at UIA. So
Yeah.
clearly, lots of financial due diligence and all those lawyers, but it
Oh,
was a
yeah.
great, I know, right? But it was a great step forward because that way I wasn't the only person that was responsible for every single thing. I came into a place
Mm.
that had the infrastructure and I
Hmm.
could get back to really just focusing on the love that I have
Yes.
for my actors, for the work, for
Yeah.
doing those things, but still being a partner and being an owner. So
Right.
it
Right.
was the right fit.
Yes.
And obviously, I love my peeps over at UIA. I mean, we have a very family vibe because we're always working for one another as well as our actors. So it was the perfect timing.
Nice.
Um, and that's kind of my whole deal. That's how I got to where I am today.
Nice. Just to clarify, when it went, it was just the idea of paperwork and having to
Oh
do
no.
all of that. I'm like, oh, for
Oh,
so
I
long.
agree with you. Are you kidding?
Any last things that you would love to impart to inspire or keep people on target, or anything that you wish people could have told you that would have helped you
Oh,
so much more smoothly go through all your pivots?
I don't like to make it about me, so I'm going to go with the first portion of that question. I'd like to
Okay.
say things that I like to impart to actors. Get out of your head. Get
Mm,
out of your head and think that there's something that you can do
mm,
to make this work for you.
mm.
The answer is all in due time. There are some people who you don't even know who they are until they're in their 50s. One of my favorite performers is Allison Janney.
Oh,
And
yes.
I'm sorry, she had never won an award until she was well into her 50s.
Hmm.
Trust me, she was acting before then
Yeah. Yeah.
and was around for a very long time before then. But
Huh.
sometimes things just fall into place. Everything, everywhere, all at once.
That was
It
such a great
just,
movie.
right?
Yeah.
But like these are the ways that the world works. You can't control the universe. And
Mm,
I know that we in such an industry with so many question marks try to. We try to find a control. Don't,
right.
because it's
Right.
not going to work. It's just going to piss you off and get you frustrated every day.
Right.
Know that it happens when it happens. Trust me, if I had a success guide, then I'd be living in some sort of mansion out in Malibu Hills, like, because then I would do that for everyone. Like, why would I not do that? Like,
Yeah.
there is no one way, and there
Yeah.
is no one thing that's going to work for everyone. So don't try to control it. Accept it when
Mm,
it comes with
yeah.
gracious, open arms.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. All right, last
Hmm.
question. Silly
Yeah,
question. Silly question.
go
All
for it.
right. Let's do this one. Two truths and a lie.
Oh.
Do you know that one?
I do, but like I haven't played it in a while, so like I don't know, or at least I haven't played it in a more professional setting. Truth and a
Yes.
lie.
Safe for work. Safe for work.
Exactly. I know. That's a whole new thing I'm learning at UIA too. Hello,
Yeah.
HR. Um, no, two truths and a lie. I I miss acting. I My favorite movie is Clue from 1985. And my favorite television show is Will and Grace. Can you guess which one's the lie?
Okay, I'm gonna guess,
Go for it.
but I'm giving it some time so anyone listening can guess too.
Hmm.
I'm gonna guess the lie is Will and Grace is your favorite show.
Wrong.
Oh!
Ah, my lie is I miss acting.
Wow, you don't miss acting.
I
That's
don't.
great. I mean,
Yeah.
considering what you're doing, that is great.
Well, it took some time, I will say. It did. It definitely took some time.
Yeah.
But I will say, there are moments in my life where I'm like, oh, it was so nice to tell those stories. But the amount of sheer vulnerability that you have to
Mm,
have as an actor is
yeah.
something that I'm just not good at.
Oh,
And I don't like doing that.
yeah.
So I think it's one of those things that probably I never will miss acting. Because I'm getting to an age where I'm setting my ways now. So
Yeah.
I ain't going back. So
Yeah.
that's actually the lie. And Will and Grace was one of my favorites, the original, not the reboot.
Oh.
And Clue is my favorite movie.
Ah, I never saw Clue. I love Will and Grace, so yeah,
Yeah. Well,
cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate.
it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to Conversations with Alya Lei. I'd love to hear from you. Follow me on Instagram at Alya Lei, ALYALEI.